I want to get your first reactions about both on substance and as a matter of politics, how well you think Hillary Clinton did today in this rather momentous press conference.
I think she answered about half the questions that people have, legitimate questions about how she handled her emails, but she evaded or wasn't asked about the other half. So she certainly made progress today in clarifying some things which just hadn't been answered, but there's lots more, and she alluded at the end to the notion that others might follow up with her. So I suspect we're going to see some backgrounding by people close to her to perhaps clarify some of the other issues. I think the two biggest issues that weren't addressed was, one, she was asked if she consulted with the government to make sure that her server was secure and her emails were secure. She simply asserted that there'd never been a breach. She didn't say that the government had in any way had blessed the system that she went with. The other thing that I think wasn't addressed was this question of the gap of time between when she handed over the emails and when she wrote the emails that didn't go on the government server. She acknowledged, and her staff has acknowledged in the past, that there are some of those. So the time she did hand them over, when there were subpoenas and Freedom of Information Act requests that would have been insufficiently fulfilled because she hadn't handed those over. I think the most definitive thing she said, which will certainly rile some people, but she was relatively clear about it, is she is not open to having an independent person do analysis of the server and hand it over. She said that will remain private, and I certainly think that will cause some people to say that this will not be laid to rest because they are not willing to take her word that this was done properly and completely.
Right, Mark, it was notable to me that she, among the many questions, that there were a lot of multiple questions asked by particular reporters who got in 2 or 3 and sometimes 4-part questions, and she sort of cherry-picked the questions she wanted to answer. I believe Andrea Mitchell asked her how she would respond to those who found it troubling that she would be the arbiter over which emails were turned over to the State Department and which she retained in her possession. She didn't really answer that question, and I think that seems relevant to me when it goes to the thing you just raised, which is her pretty much absolute statement that she is not going to turn over any more emails than the ones she's already turned over to the State Department, that the ones that remain in her possession will remain in her possession only. The question that I had that seemed a little unclear to me, and maybe it was obvious to you there, it seemed early in the press conference that she was asserting that she had destroyed those emails and that they no longer existed. Was that your sense, or do you have a sense that she still has the email that she didn't turn over, whether she still has a record, an easy-to-obtain record of those emails that she did not turn over to the State Department?
She seemed to be saying for the first time that some of her personal emails were destroyed.
Right.
That seems unusual. I presumably they bought a server with a decent capacity, and while she's a relatively prolific emailer, I'd be surprised if those had to be purged for purposes of storage space. The other question that raises then is, as someone asked, is if you destroyed those, deleted those, did you delete others? We all know permanent deletion is not an easy thing for a normal civilian to do.
Right.
It's possible that whoever was running her tech operation, her IT people, permanently deleted those emails. And again, that goes to the question that I think is going to be one of the biggest looming out of this event, which is, does she really expect the fervor to die down if she's asking her political opponents and the media and the public to rely on her saying, I handed over everything that needed to be handed over. She said she erred on the side of caution in handing everything over, but do they trust her to say, I handed everything over, I deleted some emails from my personal server, but those were only personal emails. It's hard to imagine why she would have deleted personal emails, but perhaps she has a reason, but she did not explain that. But the notion that she acknowledged that she did some deletions, I think is going to strike people. It's going to raise a little bit of suspicion, even more suspicion in some people. If you were deleting emails, how do you know you didn't delete something you shouldn't have, and,
right.
and how can we trust that you didn't do that?
Well, and I'd raise one other question, which is a basic kind of technological question. And we heard this yesterday from Lanny Davis, where he said to us on the air, with all due respect, that she repeated this line, that she had done this for convenience so she could keep just one device. I don't know about you. You're a fairly technologically advanced guy, I know. I personally have, on my iPhone, I have emails from various accounts that all come up into my single device. So there seems something a little suspect about the notion that somehow she was doing this in order so she wouldn't have to carry 2 devices around. As I say, I think it's relatively easy to carry one device with multiple accounts from multiple different servers.
Well, I'll speculate about that. I think there are answers to that she may not want to have raised regarding technology in the State Department. We all know that the federal government tends on IT to be 1, 2, or 3 generations behind the private sector. And I think 2 things are possible. One is she didn't want to use State Department email on any device because it was clunky and hard to use, and she didn't want to say that because she certainly doesn't want to be bad-mouthing her former department. But the other is it may not have been possible to have State Department email on her chosen device configured the way the State Department would want it configured.
All right, Mark, I'm going to leave you there. Thank you so much for being over there at the UN. We're going to have, you and I are going to talk about this a lot more, and with all due respect tonight. I want to go to Al Hunt, though, briefly in Washington. Al, give us the overview sense. Having watched this performance, what do you think both on substance, style, political consequence? Give it to me, the big picture.
She did better, actually, than I thought she was going to do. It went longer. I thought that was good. But leave it to Andrea Mitchell to ask the central question. And the irony, John, is that she's absolutely right. If she had, in the beginning, had a State Department account and a personal account, there would be no issues today at all, because all those personal emails would be personal emails. I don't think the issue is going to go away. I think she's going to have to address some more things. I still doubt it will become a big deal.
Al, I think, Mark alluded to this fact, and I think we all would agree that for Secretary Clinton's most vociferous critics, there is almost nothing she could do, just, apart from walking up there with a pile of documents and handing over every single email she's ever sent. That's probably the only way she could quiet them all down. But I do think that this question related to whether it was proper for her to be the arbiter of what she turned over and what she didn't turn over, and the suggestion that she did destroy some email, although it's personal email. I think that for a lot of people, and maybe not just those on the very far right, is going to raise some more questions going forward.
Yeah, you're right, John. You really are right.
Okay.